Who governs? That is the fundamental question before us in this mighty debate today. At what point does a self-governing country have to say it is no longer self-governing because the body of European law and the wide-ranging body of European decisions are so fundamental that ministers and this Parliament can no longer effectively govern the country? Too many of us have watched and seen as governments have given away mighty powers of self-government from these islands and from this once great Parliament to the European institutions. And we have worried greatly. This has been done in the name of the British people, but it has not been done with the consent of the British people. There has always been an excuse not to trouble the British people, and so often, outside this House, political parties have misled the British people. The British people were told they were joining a common market. It was very clear from the Treaty of Rome onwards that they were joining a political, economic and monetary union in the making. They had been told that they just belonged to a single market, needed to guarantee jobs in certain export industries. There were two misleading things there. Firstly, you do not need to belong to the EU to export to the EU. Many other countries outside it export much more successfully than we have done from inside it. And secondly, it was always a far bigger and more noble venture in the eyes of its architects, its fathers and mothers, than a mere single market or internal market. And I ask this Parliament to look around and to just see what has been done in their names, to see how difficult it is now for ministers of the coalition or future ministers of Conservative or Labour administrations to do many of the things they would like to do or their electors wish them to do because so many powers have been given away. The bigger the corpus of European law becomes, the more constrained are not just our ministers, but this once great Parliament.
I thank the right honourable member for giving way. Does he not accept that the cars that are being exported from the UK to mainland Europe today are as a result of foreign direct investment to the UK because the UK is within the European Union, not outside of the European Union?
It's a very trivial point compared with the issues I'm raising, and it's entirely wrong. It's entirely wrong because there are many countries outside the EU that attract as much or more inward investment as we do. We will continue, and I want, as he does, to keep those jobs. We will continue to attract and support that inward investment as long as we have a satisfactory enterprise economy here and a decent market. We have a very large market of our own. That is why they come here. But he needs to look around and just see how many powers have been taken away. We can no longer have an agricultural policy of any kind unless it is the approved one from Brussels. Our fishing grounds are completely controlled and regulated from Brussels. Our energy policy is greatly circumscribed by a large amount of European legislation, regulation and price control, and many more decisions coming along on climate change and energy, which means it's very difficult to have an enterprise-oriented energy policy in this country. We find we do not control our own borders. We have no say over who comes here from the continent of Europe, and they have come in very large numbers in recent years. Many of them are very welcome. But a sovereign country has the right to decide who comes and on what terms. We were always assured by governments that we kept control of our welfare policy, that was a matter for domestic consideration. We now find that the EU presumes to instruct us on to whom we give benefits and what benefits we give them. I give way.
Member, again, it's a grand opportunity to ask him as I asked the member for Stone. Could he outline exactly on what position he would take and what issues to vote to leave the EU? On a matter just of emotion, or could he give me some specific things that he says could persuade his party and his government to vote no when it comes to a referendum?
Mr. Speaker, I wish to help restore democracy in our islands, and to do that we need to regain the veto. We should not have sacrificed 100 vetoes at Nice and Amsterdam and Lisbon. This Parliament needs to be able to decide whether a new law goes forward or not. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, we will find in ever more areas, I'm just beginning to illustrate some of them, we are a fax or an email democracy. that we receive the emails or the faxes from Brussels, and this Parliament has to put through the measure whether we like it or not. And it creates a tension within our democracy, because we know that successive governments bring measures to this House and recommend them to this House. They often sneak them through this House. They often sneak them through upstairs when they are very fundamental laws, because they fear they are unpalatable to us, but they know that there is nothing that can be done by this House of Commons once the agreement has been made. And so often that agreement is made in Brussels without the wholehearted consent of the British minister. With this government, it may often be made against the wishes of the British minister, but this House is still expected to put through these measures, come what may. That is why we need a government which resolutely negotiates a new relationship for us with our partners in Europe. Of course, I give no ground to anybody and want to maximising the jobs and investment in this country, and my recommendations would increase it rather than reduce it, as we find with non-EU members already. But what I also wish to see is the Prime Minister's great speech used as a platform for setting out how you recreate a democracy and have the right in this House to say no to European laws if we do not like them. We have waited a long time for a Prime Minister in this country who would say honestly that this country does not share the aim of the treaties and many of the member states of the European Union, because we do not wish ever closer union. And I've heard very few Labour members stand up and say they want ever closer union, because they know that means political, monetary, fiscal, economic, every kind of union known. It means the creation of a United States of Europe. Those who wish to join it, I wish them well. But it was never Britain's view that we wanted to be part of the United States of Europe. The British people, if asked, would say no to that idea, and it is up to us now, at this late hour, to say that too many powers have gone and power needs to be restored if we are to restore this once great chamber. This Parliament wrestled power from over mighty monarchs. This Parliament took on those who wished to dominate the continent of Europe and rejected the imperial ambitions of first Spain, then France, then Germany. We as a nation, because of the work of our predecessors in this House of Commons, said to Europe, we want a Europe of the free. We want a Europe of independent nations. We want a Europe where people's sense of local belonging is respected. We are against a tyranny. We are against an overmighty Europe. We do not believe that Europe can be governed as a whole. And how proud that vision was, and how right it is that our Prime Minister has now reminded us of the foundations of our beliefs. No to ever closer union, yes to more democracy. No to restrictions and too much centralised government from Brussels. Yes to greater freedom to breathe and to decide and to choose amongst all the smaller countries of Western Europe. I suspect there are many countries out there and many politicians in them who respect that vision and are rather impressed by its boldness. We should all join together now in rallying the peoples of Europe to say yes to friendship, yes to trade, yes to cooperation, but no to centralisation and no to authoritarian interference. Yeah.